Hello and welcome to this special show on Rajya Sabha Television. I am Vishal Dahiya, and here we take a stock of India's fight against COVID-19 and all the related aspects as well. Now, one of the very important things which is being discussed right now nowadays is the fact that COVID-19 also spreads through airborne transmission. Now, there is a report which WHO has from almost 300 experts, and based on that, the World Health Organization has also put guidelines in place. So we'll understand what exactly is airborne transmission. How does it affect us now, specifically in India, where we are in the middle of this battle against COVID pandemic. For more on this, we're joined by a distinguished panel of guests. Let me first introduce them to you, beginning with Dr. Shekhar Munde. He's the Director General of CSIR. We also have with us Dr. Anant Mohan, Professor and Head of the Department of Pulmonary Medicine at All India Institute of Medical Sciences. And we're also joined by Dr. Archishman Mohapatra, an epidemiologist. Welcome, all of you gentlemen, to Rajya Sabha TV. Let me begin with you, Dr. Munde, and let's start by understanding a bit more about airborne transmission and the report which WHO is basing its guidelines upon.
So what happens is that when we speak, or when we sing, or when we cough, or when we sneeze, we always release some aerosols in air through our mouth. Aerosols can typically be anywhere between zero point 0.1 to about 10 to 12 microns in size. 1 micron is 1,000th of a millimeter. And aerosols essentially are either saliva particles or some part of mucus. And if we have anything in our mouth or in the nasal cavity, they can be expelled along with that aerosol. It can be encapsulated in the aerosol. When we sneeze, we typically expel about 30,000 aerosols. When we speak for about 5 minutes, we expel something like 3,000 aerosols in air. Now, the larger aerosols, they settle on surfaces very easily. The ones which are 10 microns or more, they settle down very easily on the surfaces. The smaller aerosols, they remain suspended in air for longer time. Those which are anywhere between 1 to 5 microns, they remain suspended. And if these aerosols have encapsulated virions in them, then there is a possibility that any person in the vicinity, when that person is inhaling air or something, there's a possibility that person may inhale these aerosols through which the virus may enter. But the route of transmission and all, I think Dr. Anant Mohan is probably more competent than I am in talking about that. So this is the science of aerosols that actually I want to tell you. Larger aerosols settle down on surfaces. If they have encapsulated virions in them, you touch the surface, and at your hand by chance goes to your nose or mouth or eyes, there is a possibility of transmission from there. Smaller aerosols remain suspended in air. You inhale them, and there is a chance of infection from there.
Okay. Let me bring in Dr. Anant Mohan here. Dr. Anant, what's the difference now between this airborne transmission concept which we're talking about and the way we've been protecting ourselves? Because as Dr. Munde pointed out, we've been talking since beginning about ensuring or maintaining respiratory hygiene as well. So aren't we already aware of this and taking precautionary measures, or is there something new to this situation right now?
Well, there may not be something very new. It is a kind of extension of what we already know. And like already Dr. Munde has given you the basic physiological principle of this whole thing. So say anything between less than 5 microns is usually called as an aerosol, and anything more than 5 to 10 microns or so will be called as a respiratory droplet. So what we typically know is that it is mostly the respiratory droplets which are in which the coronavirus is there. When they come out into the atmosphere, they travel for a couple of feet, maybe 2 to 3 feet or so, and then they have a tendency to settle down on surfaces. So that is why this whole concept of distancing and all came about, to enable them not to transmit one to the other but settle down. And these are the two main forms of transmission. Of course, there are other ways of transmission. Of course, fecal-oral has also been documented. So there are other ways also which has been documented, but by and large it remains airborne transmission and particulate matter from surfaces. Now this recent concept just simply means probably when it is aerosol, that is smaller particles. These smaller particles, when they are generated, say when somebody exerts too much, like shouting, like somebody singing together, or say when we are in say stadium shouting for our teams, and so these kind of activities, or of course sneezing. So activities in which the particles are propelled for a larger distance, longer distance, or if they stay in the atmosphere for a longer period of time. So probably the two differences are longer distance and longer duration of time. So these are the two concepts which are an extension of what we already know. Basically,
Okay.
it just means that we have to follow the same principles. It boils down to the same hand hygiene and the same social distancing and the masking, actually. So, and also, I'd like to point out that these reports which came about are based on mostly lab studies. They're not really conducted on humans, they're not human trials per se. So, they were conducted under controlled research atmosphere in laboratories to try and see whether these aerosols stay in the atmosphere for a longer period of time and for a longer length, for say 3 meters, 10 meters, whatever. So
Okay.
they found out that yes, at some situation there is a tendency for these particles to be there airborne and not settle down for even up to 3 hours or so. So probably this is the genesis, how the whole genesis of airborne transmission came about. So we have to wait and watch. I mean, these are preliminary reports, and WHO just flagged this concern. It is not really said that it is there rampant everywhere roaming in the atmosphere. So we have to take that into perspective.
Okay, definitely. That has to be taken into perspective, and also the fact that these are lab studies or research based on, studies done in a controlled environment. Dr. Mohapatra, your views initially on this concept which is being talked about, that is aerosol transmission or the airborne transmission, finer particles, much finer particles than we perhaps have believed so far.
This entire COVID situation, the way it is happening is a constant evolution of evidence. So we are correcting our position very frequently, but it all melts down to the same old practices like cough etiquettes, hand hygiene, keeping some social distance. This debate has come with limited acknowledgement that aerosols are a potential source of transmission, way of transmission. And that's what these 239 scientists have signed, and they have tried to make a voice around that, okay, be aware that aerosol is also a mode of transmission. It has implications because offices are opening up, lockdown is being relaxed, and it calls for more ventilation indoors especially. So you need to stay in well-ventilated environments to ward off this kind of risk. But as Dr. Mohan has already pointed out, we are already into that sort of practice, that we are having masks, we are observing cough etiquettes, we are observing hand hygiene, social distancing. Those are the same processes. It's only that you need to be more cautious that you are not in very close indoor environments and interacting with people who are exuding too much of viruses.
Okay. Perhaps one more reason why we can't lower our guard. Is that right, Dr. Munde? We practice the same principles of precaution, but we will have to be more, serious about them. Specifically, use of masks when we step out of our houses, or we are in a public place, or more than one people even.
Yeah, I cannot agree more on that. What Dr. Anant Mohan has correctly pointed out, that the basic principles of saving ourselves remain the same. That is frequent washing of our hands, maintaining distance, and mask. Mask becomes even more important if it were to be considered airborne, because as I said, the particles containing virions, the smaller one, especially smaller than 5 microns, they can remain airborne for a longer time, longer duration, they can float around, and especially in the places which are not very less ventilated or in crowded places. And masks are a great way of actually filtering them out. So wearing mask is absolute must, which both my colleagues here have pointed out already.
Okay, and what about the other point which Dr. Anant Mohan said, that these are not tests which have been done on a particular set of population. These are lab studies done in a very controlled environment. So how reliable these studies or these particular set of experiments might be in terms of putting them in application in the real world environment?
Yeah, actually what he pointed out is quite right. There are 3 recent papers, or rather the 4th one by these 239 scientists is just getting published. But 3 papers based on which people have based their argument on. There are 2 which published in Proceedings of National Academy of Sciences USA, and 1 in New England Journal of Medicine. What they have done, actually, they have done a very controlled experiment in a box and let people or animal actually breathe into that. And through lasers, they actually monitor what kind of droplets or droplet nuclei or aerosols are actually generated in that. So they are very controlled studies, but nonetheless, most of the science that we do, actually we also set up models in the lab, and based on the models, whatever conclusions are there, we extrapolate that to the real life situation. That's how a lot of science actually is being done.
Okay. Dr. Anand, would you agree to that part?
Yeah, sure. Because every science will first off start in the lab only. So first it has to be done in the lab under a particular controlled environment, and then gradually it is tried onto other situations. So like controlling for temperature, controlling for humidity, and all those things. So first they do it in different situations in the laboratory setup, and then they go and do it in the field. So that is how the research progresses. So probably tomorrow somebody might do the same kind of a study in the field also. So science evolves, and tomorrow we may have more and more evidence. So although probably this evidence is there, we can't say it is conclusive, but it is something in that direction. So it is just something to be aware of, and it is just something to again reinforce the fact that we cannot lower our guard. I think that is the bottom line, that we have to maintain whatever practices we are doing, whether it is airborne or it is not airborne. We have to keep doing what we are doing.
Okay, and then when we talk about aerosol transmissions, one very segment of the society which is very susceptible to this or vulnerable to this is obviously the health workers, because they are in an environment, specifically those who are tending to COVID patients. They are in an environment where there are more possibilities of them being exposed to that particular virus. So, any specific aspect, views on that aspect, because it is ultimately the health workers who are the frontline warriors in this entire battle against COVID.
Well, obviously, yes. So they are slightly at a higher risk group. That is true, and that is why a proper protection is provided to them, and they have to make sure that they are wearing the proper PPE when they are going in contact with the patients, or even otherwise. So in the current situation, even in the as far as the hotspots are concerned, and in the healthcare system, it would be a good idea to be a little overcautious, if I may say so. So try and behave and try and do your modify your practices as if every person may be potentially infective. So although it may not be, I mean, one should not say that you stop seeing patients or anything, nothing like that. But one has to just take some extra precautions to protect ourselves also. So just adequate level of PPE and adequate level of precaution, more so for the healthcare workers, are definitely warranted.
Okay, Dr. Mahapatra?
In healthcare settings, we are already observing personal protection. It also depends on the infrastructural support we have. So in Western settings or in more evolved settings, they conduct, they manage these sick patients in negative pressure rooms or ICUs, where the air is sucked out, there is frequent ventilation, and there are high standards of filters, HEPA filters and blowers and all. So that kind of setting may not be practicable at every place, but at least those PPE and special masks and protections that we are already doing, those would be good enough. Also, that certain procedures are more likely to generate aerosols, and you should be more careful. Suppose you're intubating someone, or you are resuscitating someone. So those kind of situations tend to generate more aerosols. So be more careful. But those are the standard practices that have already been going on, and the evidence that is coming up is just like raising an alarm. But we need to see that when we are sampling air from sick patients in their surroundings, do those really have viable virus particles? If they have, then what quantity till how long, and what are the implications for further transmission? If using those, we all know that there is exponential decay of the particles in droplets. So how much transmissibility, how much infectivity those would have, and how long we need to ventilate our otherwise not negatively pressured rooms each time we see a sick patient. So what should be the waiting period, what should be the ventilation and all. We improve upon that, but our cards are already there in place.
Okay. Dr. Munde, one very important aspect here, now that we've understood what exactly are we trying to talk about when we say airborne transmission, is there a need for an overhaul of the guidelines or the norms which we have been following so far? Or as all of you are saying, specifically you and Dr. Anant also pointing out, Dr. Mahapatra is also saying that we just need to be a bit more cautious, maybe perhaps take our cautiousness to one level higher, and then let's not lower our guard. The health hygiene, specifically in terms of respiratory hygiene, is what we should properly adhere to, and obviously the face mask. Will that do?
Yeah, I think Dr. Anant Mohan has partially addressed this question already. Essentially, we need to continue doing the same what we have been doing. Wash our hands frequently, remain ventilated places, avoid crowding, maintain social distance, and most importantly, wear a mask all the time. What essentially more vigilant means is that even if you are inside a room with a group of people, and even if the people are sitting apart and the room is not very well ventilated, a mask actually would be very desirable to wear all the time, even inside a room which is not very well ventilated. The first preference, of course, would be to have very well ventilated places for all places where a more number of people sitting. So it doesn't really add much to what we are already doing, but just be a little bit more vigilant, as Dr. Anant Mohan already pointed out.
Okay, so mask is the best weapon as far as protecting oneself against this particular transmission of this particular virus is concerned. One more question here, Dr. Munda, I'd like to bring you in is, are we specifically, since you're the Director General of CSIR, is any of the CSIR institutes or any particular other organization is planning to or is working on trying to find more finer nuances as far as airborne transmission or various other aspects of COVID-19 is concerned, specifically with respect to transmission?
So what we are planning to do at this stage, and it's only in a planning stage at this moment, and we have not begun the study, is basically just sample the air, keep sampling air at random places, including hospitals and all, and just test in the air whether you find any RNA or not. Essentially viral RNA, whether there is evidence of that, is what we are planning. As of now, we haven't started the study yet, but it's only in the design stage. So it will take a while, a few days, to at least design it properly and take it off.
Okay, and then which of your institutions would be working on that?
So we have two very good institutes. One is the Center for Cellular and Molecular Biology in Hyderabad and Institute of Microbial Technology in Chandigarh. They probably would be involved in this kind of work.
Okay, wonderful. That's very, heartening to understand that, or know rather, that our own scientists and researchers would be working on that. Dr. Mohan, your comments, concluding comments on the way forward from here onwards, because we have so far done, so good in terms of our fight against COVID-19. Obviously, airborne transmission is another aspect. Going one step further ahead, perhaps fortifying our defenses more is the key here.
Yeah, correct. So basically, probably it is just one more addition to the gradually evolving, or rather, I would say, rapidly evolving scientific knowledge in this situation. Every day we are getting something or the other new, either it is in diagnostics or in therapeutics. So this is something that we are getting from the public health perspective. So that's fine, as long as we have our systems in place. And again, like we said, as long as we don't lower our guard, I think things should be all right. And one important thing that might emerge, first of all, these studies have to be kind of fortified with more such studies and more robust data, and probably then we will know exactly what is the situation. And then after that, if so, then we just have to be, one important aspect is the air circulation might be another aspect that may come into the picture later on. The air circulation, the openness, the lack of not being there in closed spaces. So the same kind of situation may be there, and not just for the next couple of months, maybe for the next quite a long time as well. So that concept may maybe come over, rather than everybody sitting in a closed air conditioned room. One may like to start now sitting in open rooms with open windows again, like we used to do several years ago. So before the air conditioners were there. Of course, on a lighter vein, considering the air pollution also, that also is one thing which one has to take into account. But that is how it is likely to be.
Okay, definitely we will have to change the lifestyle there. As for lifestyle changes is what in the longer term, if we have to go ahead and continue keeping ourselves safe. Dr. Mahapatra, your views on the aspect that are we doing enough in terms of, if you look at this entire situation from an epidemiologist's point of view, are you satisfied the way we are taking steps to prevent this transmission of COVID-19 or safeguard ourselves, specifically the journal, public, and the guidelines and norms which are already in place? Are they enough to go ahead and tackle this additional challenge which seems to be suggested by these reports and studies?
See, no country has actually done exceptionally well. So each one is learning from its own experiences and context. So India is also learning, we're improving. Our testing rates have gone up, so we are now 1 crore 13 lakhs odd. So testing, and then we are constantly learning. Of course, the public has to be more aware, more precautionary, because the government cannot actually control something that spreads through these routes. So it's an individual responsibility. And also in terms of research, it's good initiative, welcome initiative that we are doing some research which is relevant to our context. More transdisciplinarity is required if it becomes an airborne transmission, because then it involves ventilation engineers, it also involves meteorologists, the issue of weather, pollution, all those things need to be taken care of. So, but we are in the right direction. Slowly, maybe we could do much faster, but then each country is learning. So we are also learning.
Mm-hmm. Okay, there it is. Everybody is learning. It is a slightly larger learning curve, which we are getting used to as far as COVID-19 is concerned. It's an evolving situation and a dynamic one as well. Every day we learn a lot more things, not only about the virus itself, but also about the ways in which we can tackle this particular challenge. So this is all about airborne transmission of COVID-19, that is SARS-CoV-2, something which is already we are doing in terms of taking safeguard actions in terms of preventing this particular transmission or taking precautions. Again, thank you so much, Dr. Anant, Dr. Archisman, and Dr. Munde as well. Specifically, Dr. Munde, we would like to hear more from you when your researchers at those premier institutions look more into this particular aspect and come up with perhaps more solutions to this particular challenge. Thank you once again, and keep watching Rajya Sabha Television, and please do not forget to use face mask when you step out of your houses, because that is the most efficient weapon against COVID-19. Thank you.